Hello, filmmakers. Welcome to the first event of the year of the Blackmagic Collective. We have a great guest that we're going to jump all into very quickly, but first, some housekeeping. Hi, you see the comments box, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Make sure you let us know where you're from and what you do in the biz, because someone at the end of this is going to be from the chat is going to be pulled in to win a Blackmagic 4K pocket cinema camera. And who doesn't want a free camera that's like worth like $2,500, right? And on that note, thank you to Blackmagic Design for being our sponsor and supporting us indie filmmakers as well as you do. Also like to thank our new sponsor, Sigma, who has been helping our diversity initiative fellows out all year long with lens help without paying. I say lens rentals, but it doesn't cost them anything. And they're on now to help us this year as well. If you're new to Blackmagic, we are a collective of artists and filmmakers, everything from actors to directors to colorists to composers. If you're in the film business, your community is here. Everything we do is free for you. So just sign up at blackmagiccollective.com and you'll get all the notices of when we have events, when our initiatives are new applications open. Speaking of new applications, we have a current, it's called the Accountability Initiative, and that is open right now. You can go to if it's not on our website, it's in our group. It's somewhere. You can find it. Basically, it's going to be a year-long accountability initiative for those selected, where we're really going to help you hone in on what's stopping you making your career level up and helping you figure out action steps, while each member will help each other stay on target all year long. What else do I need to tell you? I need to tell you the Blackmagic Collective Film Festival is now open for submissions. So if you have a 5-minute or less short narrative film, we only do narrative films and good films. So 5 minutes or less short film, submit. It's free to submit. And it's when we do the festival, you win all kinds of prizes like cameras and cash and good stuff. And what else? I think that might be it. It might be time to get into who our guest is. Oh, in case you don't know who I am, which why don't you know who I am yet? That means you're not active in our community. So go to our Facebook group and start saying hello. I am Jenn Page. I am the executive director of Blackmagic Collective, but I'm a director myself. My 6th feature film was just released in theaters last November, Playing with Beethoven. And I've directed everything, music videos, series, you name it, I've directed it, all kinds of genres. So I'm just like you. I'm always learning, I'm always growing, and I'm always wanting to connect and create new work. So my questions are going to come from that space, but you're here from your space. So in the box, I want you to put your questions as we go along. We don't want to ask questions like, how was it really working with Gal Gadot? But we want to have questions about what did Markus do? How did he work? How does he work with his director? Anything color related? Anything? Is he thinking about music? If you're a composer, whatever you want to ask that's related to the craft, that's what we're going to dive into. Okay. So once again, if you're just joining us, say hello in that chat. Let us know where you're from. Let us know what you do in the biz. And we are going to raffle off that 4K pocket cam at the end. Okay. Markus. He was selected as one of Variety's 10 stars behind the cameras. He's a German-born cinematographer who graduated from the University of Television and Film in Munich. And look, I'm just going to tell you, one of his most recent works is he DP'd Red Notice on Netflix and The Colony on Netflix. So he's going places. He's been places. He's so talented. I mean, like the stuff he shoots is just gorgeous. So I'm going to let you read his bio because I want to use our time to actually talk to him. That was a lot. Here we go. Hey, Markus, welcome.
Hi, Jenn. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We tried to squeeze in so much so quickly to get right to it. I would love, let's just start off with something fun and maybe just tell us one of your favorite parts of when you were doing cinematography for Red Notice. What was one of your favorite parts of that?
Good question. So many fun scenes, but I think one of the most exciting ones to shoot was the opening sequence where we used an FPV race drone, starting in Rome, racing over a bridge, and ending up in a close-up of our main character, Dwayne Johnson, stepping out in his close-up. So that was a really exciting one to plan and shoot.
It was very cool. Yeah. I always wanted, because my films, I've done a lot of indies, so we don't get to have these big elaborate setups. And I always wonder how you guys pull off those really big, because obviously you're closing streets down or you're building streets depending on the budget, how are you technically pulling off a shot like that?
Yeah, it's a lot of planning. So there's usually a big table, a lot of people, right? Visual effects, supervisor, director, first AD, myself, and we just talk through the script. And every time there's something that's out of the ordinary, right, we just brainstorm and come up with ideas. How could we tackle that? And some early discussions with Rosten Thurber, our fantastic director, and we did a shot list for every scene, every shooting day, and had so many options, like how would we tackle this. And I always try, like from a cinematographer's point of view, try to offer a solution. How can we shoot as much as possible in camera, right? And then be smart about where to integrate visual effects, because sometimes, right, when there's something difficult or like challenging, it's very easy to rely on visual effects. Visual effects take care of it. But if you don't shoot it in a way that it links up, then I think it's always a problem down the line in post-production.
So what did you guys decide on that particular one? Was it a lot of like drone work?
So we found this fantastic drone operator. You can look him up, Johnny FPV is his handle. He's like super talented FPV operator. And these little FPV drones, they're race drones. So traditionally they fly small GoPro cameras. They're very agile. They don't have a gimbal to stabilize, so they fly more like a plane in a way. And we figured out, like, he built a custom drone, and we had early prototypes of the Red Komodo camera, which is a pretty small, compact setup. And we figured out to fly that. Did lots of rehearsal runs on our backlot, where we had basically a replica of the museum entrance and part of the bridge. And we practiced this and shot it basically in two pieces. And there's like a visual effects transition where we blend between our Atlanta backlot, where we shot everything with our actors, and the relocation in Rome, where we went to start up the shot as a big white shot.
Wow, that's cool. So when you're coming into like a movie that big, that scale, which we all know, like it had like $1 bazillion as far as Netflix money goes, but like, how do you even start approaching that with your director? Is there, is it creative concepts first? Like, is it technical? How do you like to work with your director? And especially on a movie of that scale, we're talking just a lot of technical, all around, just technical stuff all over the place. And your coloring is beautiful in that. Like, how do you get to that end point?
Like I said, it's a lot of pre-production. I think it's so important to look for references. It could be all kinds of things. I watched movies with Rosen, our director, and we watched clips, sequences of other films, just to see early on, like, what do we like, what works for us, or what could be interesting. Sometimes because when you start from scratch, right, you have to find your own visual language and tone. And sometimes it helps to watch something where you, like, everyone involved see, like, this is not the right thing. We want to go somewhere else. So that helps you define where you have to maybe do more research or shoot your own tests, because obviously you don't want to copy something that exists, but just to find the ballpark. Right. Like, how dark is dark, right? When you say there's a moody scene taking place at night, for example, and in the script it says night, dark. How dark does it really mean? Because Red Notice, for example, it's like a lot of comedy, right? An action comedy. So you want to keep that light feel and fun feel, but still not make it look like silly and too heightened. So this helps a lot. We watched movies, sequences. I always shoot many tests early on. So we tried to find out what's the shooting format, what cameras, what lenses, what filtration. So we experimented a lot with, like, I was fascinated with that old Hollywood glamour look, what they did on the big, especially female lead stars in the early age of Hollywood, right, where they used silk stocking diffusion and all kinds of diffusion tricks to give that special glow to their female leads. So we experimented with that, and closely with Ross and our director, we've dialed in what's the right way for us to go. And we ended up using basically an old silk stocking that's not made anymore, and attached that behind the lens for certain shots and sequences.
I'm always scared to put looks on my film, like when I'm shooting, because I'm always scared, like, later I'm going to regret it. So I always think it's brave when you go, no, we're committing to this look. We're putting the filter in, because I think we've gotten so used to relying on digital to create looks, but it's not the same. And I think that it shows in the Red Notice, especially when we're talking about that whatever choices you made on set definitely affected the final thing.
Yeah, that's right. Like, I think, of course, especially when there's a lot of visual effects involved, you have to be careful not to do something optically that might be a problem later on. But so this we tested and closely collaborated with our visual effects department, and they were all in, saying, shoot it the way you think it should look, and we'll make the set extension work to match that look.
That's awesome.
Because sometimes it's right, if you start too clean, sure, you can emulate a lot of effects in post, but if you don't have the right reference, it will always feel more like sterile or
no, for sure. And it never really looks, the same. I've got some comments coming in for you that I think you should know. John Curtis says, the opening sequence is just freaking amazing. Watched this with my family. We actually commented on how beautiful it was. Kate Fogarty says, I thought Red Notice looked so good.
Thank you.
It's really great. And I might say your name wrong. I'm so sorry. Ankai Kai says, really good job with the FPV. Those shots are crazy. Love, love, love. And then... Johnny says FPV drones are so much fun to fly when you know how to, but when you first learn, it's insanely scary. Nice.
Yeah.
So talk to everybody about, because you did end up making the choice, obviously on cameras and lenses. Can you talk to us about Red Notice and then versus, say, the Colony, where your camera choices went for each of those and lens choices and such?
Yeah. So I try to mix up either the camera or the lens or the shooting format from each project to, I don't know, keep it fresh and keep myself inspired. So, and then usually I start with deciding which lens I want to shoot on, and then find which camera or sensor format fits that format. So on Red Notice, we tested so many lenses, and we ended up with Panavision, the large format anamorphics, the 1.52x squeeze. It's like they call ultra penatars, and we managed to get a couple of the original focal length, which were built for Ben-Hur, like in the in the 50s, 60s. And it's beautiful glass. It is such a unique character. It's like very big, beautiful glass, the way it renders skin tone. It's beautiful. And so they're only 1.25x squeeze. So if you know, traditionally anamorphic is like 2 times squeeze. But because of that mild squeeze, it's beneficial to use a wide sensor. And we did a lot of tests and ended up with a Red Monstro, which is a pretty wide, high resolution sensor. And that just created really amazing skin tones. I like how the high resolution subsamples the grain, like you very fine grain or noise in that way, and you get very fine natural detail. I know that this resolution debate is always, people are afraid high resolution, does it show wrinkles? In my opinion, it's the opposite. Like if you use too sharp high contrast glass, you see wrinkles, but I like to use low contrast glass and a high resolution sensor that gives you very fine natural detail without over sharpening it.
Yeah, that's nice. How do you even commit though to, like, do you ever have those moments where you're like, but I like this, but I like that? Like, how do you and your director go, okay, we're committing to this? Or do you have a moment of like, no, this is it. This is gorgeous, done.
Yeah, so it's important, right? Sometimes a project gets greenlit and you have to start right away, and sometimes there's not much prep. So it's important I try in between projects to go to rental houses or test equipment and to have like a pre-selection to know, I want to explore this for the next project. And then, it's important not to overwhelm yourself or others with too many options. Some things might be also too subtle for really, like, you can show a producer 10 different lenses, they might fall asleep. So just test and show people what's really relevant, and then and watch it on the right medium. Like Red Notice had a theatrical release and of course Netflix, and it has to work on all devices, right, from the smallest phone to the biggest TV or home cinema. So it's important to watch those tests on different screen sizes. And so this is what I always try to do.
Yeah. Really quick too, before we leave too much Red Notice behind, you had mentioned something fun about using the smaller Blackmagic camera for some water stuff.
Yeah, that was actually on The Colony. So I
The
shot this
Colony. Yes. Let's talk about that.
movie, The
That's
Colony, which is also now on Netflix in the US and Canada. It's like a movie we shot in Germany. Actually, it's like a European production. It's a post-apocalyptic sci-fi movie. Really fun if you're into this. Check it out, The Colony. And it's so the idea is the water level has risen. There's water everywhere. So we had our sets are either flooded, the flood comes in, or it's raining and there's moisture. And we even our director Tim Fehlbaum, he was also obsessed with water. He would personally, before every take, spritz water drops on the lenses, so everything was wet.
Did that stress you out?
No, we tested this, and I thought it's fine. It's like, and it's an interesting right level of realism, and something you can hardly create, like happy accidents, how light reacts to raindrops on the lens. And so there again, we tried to shoot as much as possible in camera. We had like a huge photo print of the real location. It's like a tidal, like a mud flat landscape. And the real landscape, the real location, you can only shoot for like 4 hours when the tide is low, and then the water comes back and wipes everything out. So we knew it would be impractical to shoot a whole movie in that location because the tide is controlled by the moon cycle, right? So sometimes it falls into night. And so we recreated a whole setting on a stage where we controlled everything, the elements. There we also shot like large format anamorphics, like it was Hawk 65, they're very big large format anamorphics. But then there's some physical scenes where the main character, she gets pushed down in like some pit underground and she falls into water, and we really wanted the audience to feel like you're falling down. And by the time just I think the Blackmagic Pocket 6K came out, and we got one of the early ones and put the smallest lens on it and put a rope on it, and we padded it, of course, with some foam stuff, and threw it down. So in the movie, actually, the camera spins around and shoots me for a split second, but you think I'm one of the characters because it's so fast and motion, and the camera falls down and like a hard stop just before the water. And it's like dynamic shots you could not create with any bigger rig of a camera. It would it would be way too risky, right? To risk like a $60 camera. And the beauty about then the pocket camera, because it could shoot raw, there's so much flexibility in post to match it to our other cameras. So that was a pretty.
I would love to. I want to pause for a second because I think everybody's familiar with Red Notice because it has The Rock and Gal Gadot and Ryan Reynolds. But The Colony they may not be familiar with, and I think John Printo, our tech god behind the scenes, has at least a trailer or something. I'd love to show that so people understand what we're about to talk about a little bit. So John, if you could just show a piece of that trailer at least, so we could talk about color and cameras and all that.
She was called Mother Earth. Plundered everything she offered. None of us should have come back.
Where I'm from, all reproductive technology efforts failed for both men and women. They want to prove that we can procreate here, on Earth. We came to Earth on the first mission.
We waited so long. It's imperative that we give future generations the chance of civilization and bring our people home. For the many.
For the many. Who are they?
Survivors. Muds, we called them.
Really quick, I want to say to Freudian Glitch, who just got on the DG as an assistant director and be filming their first short as a director in February. Congratulations! That's awesome. Some quick things. Now that you guys have seen Colony, I want to back up to some of these other things here. One of which is John says, the look of the Colony is haunting, barren and sterile, and a highlight of the movie's storytelling. I think he means the show. The Colony, Orestes, you guys have really hard names. The Colony is a very unique visual style. And on that, Pedro would like to ask, as a DP, how involved are you in coloring your projects? Are you in the color room every day with the colorist and the director? And I know someone earlier asked, how do you even land on your color palettes? So now that we know, we've talked Red Notice, which is very different from the Colony, and they're both very unique and beautiful. Let's talk color.
Yeah, so I worked in Germany with my colorist. His name is Florian Uzi Martin, has a fun name. So he's fantastic. We collaborated early on. I worked with him on several projects. We shot tests, I think, 2 years before we actually started shooting principal photography. So we went out in the landscape, tested all kinds of formats, 16 millimeter film. We had different cameras and red helium, anamorphic lenses, spherical lenses, and we brought in smoke and an actress in a costume to do like a little proof of concept. How would it look like? How does it actually feel to shoot there? And we took that material, like a 10, 12-minute sequence, into the grading suite and just started experimenting. And so I always try to develop one show LUT for the entire project with my colorist. So before we start shooting, we develop that look basically with using that test footage. So I try to make one LUT that works for everything, for day, exterior, night, interior, magic hour, everything. I believe in creating a consistent look. So as if you choose one film stock to shoot your movie on, unless you want for creative reason, maybe different looks to separate it. But it also keeps the workflow pretty straightforward. There's no confusion that, oh, for this scene, we should have used the other LUT. And,
right.
So you can, and then I can really focus on, for lighting and exposure, I can trust that, and I know how this will behave and how it works in low light. And yeah, especially for the Colony, we had the idea was there's like basically no green, like everything is flooded, there's no plants growing, except later in the film there's one plant, which is very significant. So there's a cool watery bluish look, but we made sure the LUT helps us a bit to remove green, if you would see any green somewhere, so that when it shows up as a story point, as this scene where they have a plant and talk about it, that it really stands out as something we haven't seen before.
So 2 questions on that. One, so I'm assuming then, since you're creating the LUT before, you're actually throwing that on, so when people are at Video Village, they're seeing the color as it should be, as opposed to the flat.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And then for those of you who may not know, I mean, so there's another question I want to ask you before that, though. Damn it, it's gone. It was revolving around your colorist. Oh, so my big question is, at the studio level, are you getting paid for that time, those testings and all that stuff? Are you still doing it sort of as you're on your own time?
Yeah, usually that's part of my pre-production, like a paid pre-production phase, where shoot tests go to the grading suite, and then until the very end when there's the final color timing. Sometimes I have like a base LUT I use basically from a previous project maybe, and maybe I tweak it in my free time with a colorist if there's something coming up, like a project which doesn't have much pre-production time, like if it's a commercial or something quick. But usually on a feature film, that's part of the paid pre-production. When I do all this research, yeah.
I mean, when you're an indie, you're lucky to ever get paid pre-production, as I'm sure you remember. So it's great to hear that as you level up, there's money. So for those of you who aren't necessarily been familiar with creating LUTs and stuff, I have a LUT on this camera here. So this is this camera that's shooting me is a Blackmagic 6K, and if I didn't have the LUT on, it would just be a flat color. But you're getting all this color because the colorist created the LUT, and then I put it on and I can select it in camera, which is one reason I also love Blackmagic cameras. They're so easy to do all that stuff. I want to see if anybody else has any questions. There's so many questions. Wow, guys. So this is an interesting one. Vincent asked, what is the hardest mood to create?
Good question. I think, like magic hour, like this blue hour, right, which looks very nice in real life, but only lasts like 20 minutes. And when you're shooting on stage, sometimes it's tempting to create this because you can freeze time and keep it all day long. But then it's always the challenge to like be dark, but still see the performance in the actor's eyes without like overlighting. Or like this last, how do you say, the last kiss of sunlight, right? When the sun is really low, which can be very beautiful, but it's easy to feel artificial because you're used on a day exterior, you're used to the sun being really bright and punchy. But when you do this very low sunlight, you have to go a low level sunlight, and that on stage, I feel like can easily feel artificial. So that's always tricky, I feel, to create. But also the most rewarding if you pull it off, right? You can shoot magic hour or sunset all day long on a soundstage.
Yeah. Yeah. Have because I'm like more of a romantic dramedy director. So I love the sun streaks and the romance. And yeah, you get like 10 minutes of that and that's it. It's gone. Let's see what else. We got so many questions. I can't even keep up with you guys. This is great. Everybody's very excited to be here with you. A lot of color questions. I'd love to hear from other people in other disciplines. While we wait for them to bring in questions that are not color related, guys, think of, who else is here? What else disciplines are you? Let's talk about how you work with your director as far as like on set. Every director is different, obviously, but is there an ideal situation for how you communicate, how you deal with, issues that arise? Do you guys already have so much pre-production that when you're on set, you kind of just go? A little bit about your process would be great.
I think it all depends on the director, right? Everyone works different, and maybe the first couple of days is even with all the pre-production, the first day or two is always a warm-up phase if you work with someone new. But I usually on bigger movies, when we shoot with multiple cameras, I try to be next to the director. Like we have basically share a video village, have our monitors right next to each other so we can communicate during the take, or sometimes it's just a glance and we point at the screen, and so by the time we cut, immediately we know what to improve for the next one, for example. And I only operate on a big movies when it's several cameras. Like I only operate sometimes for specific shots, if it's like a handheld shot or something I'm very passionate about and want to make sure it's exactly that way. But usually we have such fantastic operators and we communicate with a headset from Video Village. So it's that's for me the best, to be right next to the director. I can read in his eyes, or is he or she happy, or you can see something didn't like, or this maybe sometimes it's a background, some person walking in the wrong timing, and maybe the first AD didn't see that, but I can tell this is like ruined the shot in a way, so I can communicate that with the first AD and everyone. And then, I feel this is sometimes on smaller movies, a single camera I'm operating myself, but then I find I'm running back and forth to Video Village a lot. We might check a playback and talk about it, or get some notes. It all depends on what the director prefers, of course.
Kayla keeps asking this, but I've only been not looking at it, Kayla, because I feel like he's on a bigger scale than what you're asking possibly. But Kayla, since she keeps wanting to know, I'm going to put it up. What is your favorite gimbal and stabilizer to use? And I think that the answer, the bigger question might be like, how do you choose if you're going to go, handheld, sticks, gimbal, drone, crane? Like there's so many choices, especially at some level like Red Notice.
Yeah. So in general, it's a good question. Like I don't have any go-to tools to say, I'm using only this gimbal or that. I think it's really important to be always, for every project, be completely open. I always start from scratch. Every time I feel like, of course, there's experience from previous projects, but I always try to start from scratch, read the script and find as if this is my first movie ever, and what is the best lighting technique, what is the best, do we need a crane, what kind of crane, instead of saying, I like the Techno 50, and the same goes for gimbals, or is this, what kind of movement we're following this actor, is the Steadicam the right tool, or like a gimbal? And so it has to be always a good reason, and I try to really think it through for a long time before settling on the right tool, basically. And then I think it's important also to narrow down your selection so you don't end up with, in the afternoon, we need a special gimbal for this. And then we go back to the dolly and then to the crane, which might cost you a lot of time. And then that takes away time that director has, right, working with the actors. So I try to find a solution that's very universal and allows us to just keep the flow on the day. So there's a lot of interesting systems out there, right? Like there's this Arri Trinity, which is like a hybrid of a gimbal and a Steadicam, but also maybe not for everything. And gimbals, it really depends what kind of capacity, right? Weight, what camera and lenses you fly. Usually when we shoot with big anamorphic lenses, you really need a big gimbal, like whatever, like a Ronin Pro, or there's all kinds of systems out there. And then sometimes it becomes so big, and then maybe the gimbal is not really the right tool anymore, and you'd rather go on a crane with a stabilized head to keep it flowing.
I shoot, like music is like my biggest passion. Anything music I shoot. So I love gimbals. Like I would live on a gimbal if I could, but they're such a pain in the ass. But yeah, I love that you bring up all the tools. So I think sometimes we even forget, like sometimes you just need to be on sticks. Sometimes that's just the choice you should be making. And
grab it in your hand, right? And you can. That's with gimbals, right? There's even in 2022, there's the technology came so far, but I feel like with gimbals, there's always something. Maybe that you need to recalibrate for some reason, or something doesn't work, and then it's maybe the worst moment where the actor is right in the middle of a performance. But if you're handheld, you always can. You just grab the camera and can go.
I think I have a love-hate relationship with gimbals, because like I'm like I hate you, and I'm balancing it, and I hate you, and then it makes that one. It gets that one magic moment. You're like, I love you. This is why we're still together. Someone had a great question for you. Where did it go? Questions are coming so fast, guys. I'm sorry if I don't see your question. Feel free to put it in again. Oh, this was it. Vincent's question. I love. What do you look for in a script or director before you take on a project?
Good question. So
besides money, of course.
Besides money, that's usually, sometimes you don't even know in the beginning. They send you a script and you just try to find out. Of course, you look at the filmmakers, the director, producer. Do they have a track record of making interesting projects, or can you see the potential? Sometimes the first time director, or you saw maybe there's a link attached to some short films or some previous work to get a sense. That's really helpful for me to how to read the script, right? Because script is so many versions you can do it, but knowing who's the director and what kind of previous work he or she has done to get a sense how to read it. And then I personally always go from, am I personally interested to see that? Would I want to see that film? And is there any passion coming up in me? And how could we shoot that and tell that story visually? And if I don't feel that, I feel like I'm not the right person to do it, because
I want to stop and point that out, because this is something I preach to all of our people. They hear it, they're probably tired of me saying it, but like I'm constantly saying, if it's not a hell yes, if your heart isn't on fire, literally my production company is called Heart on Fire Productions. If your heart is not on fire, do not do it. I don't care how big the check is, because I feel like at some point you're just going to be miserable if you take it for the paycheck and not for the passion.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to pay your rent, but still, like I think there's got to be that balance of both. I love that you said that.
And I think you can deliver great work, right? If you're not really passionate about it, you might not have you will maybe fall back to some traditional approach on how to solve that problem in that scene. But if you're really passionate about it, you will do all the research and
because it's such a commitment. Even if you go, I'm not going to do any prep and I'm not going to do any post, I'm just going to go shoot this. You're still committing to like so much of your time and your energy and your body and your health on that project. So I love that. Someone just had one. Guys, give me a second. Where'd it go? It was something about your influences, and I love. I can't find it at this second, but basically it was. Do you have It was worded better than I'm going to ask it, but it was. Do you have any influences as far as like cinematography goes, and like who has sort of influenced your style?
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot. I try to watch everything, like from anime to documentaries, all kinds of features. Just to be visually inspired. Sometimes you find something, even if you're preparing a project that's maybe a dark thriller, but then you watch a comedy and you might discover something at first glance that doesn't fit, but you think, oh, this would be really interesting to try this kind of thing. So I get inspired by watching something that's very different from the actual project I'm thinking about in my head. But I mean, like, there's so many great cinematographers out there, or filmmakers, right? Nobody works. It's always a team effort, right? You need a visionary director, a cinematographer, and I mean, this year the award season, there's so many inspiring projects. But like back early on, I know Darius Khondji was a big inspiration, or it still is. He's like what he did with Seven on Fincher, fascinating to this day, and so many of course, Kubrick's a big influence for like composition and pacing, especially these days, right? Where editing feels like it gets faster and faster, and but to really see how you can rely on it if you have a strong shot and just hold it and compose it in a way that it's interesting and keeps the attention of the audience.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that it's like there's a lot of pressure that cinematographers and directors, but cinematographers especially, feel because there's so much technology and there's so many options. So it's like, how do you, it's like we talked about before, like, how do you make the choice? So there's just a lot of pressure on, being unique or coming up with that new thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it does make sense to go, like, I like that you said you went back to sort of the old Hollywood movies and went, how can I use this as an inspiration? I love that. Jenn, Marcus, do you work more in Europe or the US?
I work more in the US, but in between I work in I like to work all over the world, and I think that's the fun part about our profession, right? You get to travel usually, see different places. I worked in China, in India, and you see different ways of, you work with different crews and see their process, and that's, I find, always inspiring, especially also working in Europe. Like, I grew up in Germany, in Europe, and where the film industry is a bit smaller, but certain positions are different, the way the gaffer and the key grip work together. And then I come back to the US with on big movies, right, as a clear union hierarchy, how things are done. So this always inspires me sometimes to think simple, not everything has to be sometimes on big projects, a fairly simple thing on a page of a script becomes such a big deal that it's almost impossible to execute. Like, it's just water involved or something. That's why shooting The Colony in Europe was really such an inspiring shoot, because we did really complex stuff with water, like underwater tanks. But everyone in the crew was so up to find unique solutions. How can we pull this off with a really small tank? And we go really close up against the window, keep the camera outside the tank, like shooting through glass, to not needing an underwater housing and all this stuff, where maybe in a traditional studio system you would have underwater camera operator and safety divers and all this thing added on, and more camera technicians and maybe equipment, which makes the thing so big and complex that maybe the producer will say, I think we have to cut that scene, right? So I like to work in different places and be inspired. And the same when I come to Europe and bring experience what I learned on some of the bigger projects. And I think that's the fun of always learning, always be open to different ways of making
and
movies.
I could see are you booked up? I could feel like you're booked up for the next 5 years, like between your work and your attitude. Like, I feel like everybody's just you're just in demand. I love this question from Magali Silva. She says, hi, Marcus, what's the first thing you do when you arrive on set and the last thing you do before you leave?
Good question. I think the first thing I'll check immediately. I try to be early, and sometimes I'm even there before the crew and take a look. If it's a stage thing, look at the set. It's sometimes really weird, and the house lights are on. It's not lit yet, right? To imagine how the whole thing will look, and just use the quiet before the storm, right? To just have a clear thought, because once everyone shows up, there's a million questions, and then we need to, on stage 12, we need this, and then what second unit doing? So really to focus in a quiet moment and think it through. Is everything in the right place, or what do we need? So I try to be early and just think through the first maybe half of the day. Last thing I do, I don't know, say goodbye to my crew and thank you for their hard work. It's so
That's
amazing,
important,
right?
though. I laugh, but it's actually true. Like you every day, thank
Yeah.
your crew for
And
sure.
it's right. It's a collaborative. It's a collective, right? We're making. That's the beauty about filmmaking. Everybody brings in their talent and their expertise and their craft, and then you create something that's bigger than the sum of the parts. Like it's not just what's written on the page, and it's right. It's not just the actor's performance. It's the everything: the composer, the editor, the dolly grip, everyone brings in.
PA, everybody.
Yeah,
I
everyone.
love that. Exactly. This is a really interesting question from Tongue Sticky Out Face. Do you ever feel imposter syndrome or get overwhelmed with work, especially when you work larger scale films? And if you do, how do you deal with it? I think this is something everybody deals with, even on lower indie films. Like I've directed so much, and I've been in the business over 20 years, and I still, before a film, I'm like, why did they hire me? I don't know what I'm doing. And then I get on set and I'm like, you did, right? You know exactly what you're doing, but do you ever feel that as well?
I usually, really dive into deep and try to focus completely on that project. Like cut out make sure there's no other distractions of putting basically my life on hold in a way, so I can really focus on that project. And usually it helps. You're in a distant location, right? Like I'm based in LA, but you barely shoot here. You're gonna shoot in Atlanta or Canada or somewhere. So you're in a different city, so there's not too many distractions. You can really focus on that project. And I think the pre-production is so important to get the confidence to know you thought through every major scene and so you're not overwhelmed on the day. I think if you don't have that time, maybe then that happens, that problems every day, right, is a day of problem of the day, problem of the week. There's always something on a film shoot that you can keep up with that and not lose track of the bigger picture. So I usually have to say I'm a fairly calm person and try just don't panic. I mean, it's piece by piece. You're gonna do it, and if you don't know something, ask your gaffer or key grip or go to a producer and just communicate. Right? It's all about communication. If there's an issue, you don't feel maybe a decision was made. We have to shoot this, whatever, at the wrong time of the day because for some production reason, right? Like maybe the actor is not available, and you really know like this will create a big problem. That the sun will be so bad. We'll just try to communicate with the right departments and figure it out.
I think it's a really good thing. I just want to push that lesson home is communication, y'all that are watching, because a lot of times tempers flare on set just because a problem arises, but there's always going to be problems. So it's like, I think that we've all been in this situation where we're like, but really it's more of the, okay, how can we solve this? And working with your team, because everybody's there to make the best project possible. This is one for our new filmmakers. Jada asks, do you have any advice for students who are working their way into the industry? And what I love about this question is there anything you wish someone would have told you when you were starting that, like, I always have that, like, what would I tell my younger self that I know now?
Yeah. I mean, there's no simple answer or shortcut. I think you have to, it's a long journey, but be just how do you say that? I think just stick to it. Like keep doing projects you feel passionate about. The next one will come. You will learn. Hard to say. Like there's no simple advice to say. You did this, you're gonna be fine. But I mean, the most important thing is to, like we talked about earlier, right? If you have to make some money and make a living, but if you take too much work in projects you personally don't feel represent what you want to do, maybe you get sidetracked and also train your skills in the right way. So try to find allies, like find directors or other filmmakers who have the same interest and find a project you can really deliver something unique. Like you have to stand out, right? There's so many projects being shot, short films, music videos, commercials, feature films, TV shows. Like to do something, you have to find something that you can make visually your own and do something unique. Like not for the sake of being unique, but if you find something in the story and you have an idea, how can you, like The Colony was about water, and we really went for it. Everything is wet. It rained even on interior sets, and everything was wet. So like, it's really go for it.
A nightmare.
Yeah, if you can find something and be bold and don't try to just do it like by the books. Like, you know, you can learn 3-point lighting and how do you expose properly. Like, that's maybe something I learned or discovered during film school that I personally find like there's no rules. Like, and rules
It's
are
like
made
you
to be
learn the
broken.
rule. Yeah, right. You learn the rules so you know why, and then you break them around that. I would also go back, because when you talk about finding filmmakers and stuff, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, that like I knew people at a very high level when I first moved to LA 20 years ago that I don't talk to now, because when I came here, I was stupid and didn't know how to network. So like forming genuine, not desperate, not needy, but forming genuine connections with people is great. And also for those of you who are asking, how do I get more connected with people and have a filmmaker community? You found ones, Blackmagic Collective. And then we have a private Facebook group where I'm trying to encourage you all to start talking to each other and like working together and finding your team. Because I think that, and I'm sure Markus would agree, like you start to find your army and those certain people you keep moving along with, or they keep pulling you along with. So it's really important. What do we have here? We have, oh, this was one I like, because Unreal Engines come up a lot with Mandalorian and such. I don't know if you've worked with Unreal Engine, but Orestes asks, how do you prepare to work on a soundstage that operates as an Unreal Engine environment, if you've even done that yet?
Yeah, I'd done a couple projects. Like, also Red Notice, we didn't use Unreal, and we used video walls with photographic plates, but I've done it before. So the challenge is you start basically from scratch, right? You have a computer generated background, so you have to really work closely with the visual effect department and the production designer to create that environment, because that environment becomes your lighting source. Like, when it comes to if it's a day exterior, what kind of sky do you put in? Where's the sun coming from? Because it's going to be baked in to a certain degree. So it is really important, again, in pre-production to talk that through. But it can be very, like, a real location is always inspiring. You go on a location scout, you see a window, you see how usually you go in several times at different times of the day, and you get inspired by how that place looks, right? And can learn from it. But on a virtual stage, it's basically, right, it's like a LED video wall. It's black, you turn it on, and then whatever content you created is there. It's not, I feel, not that inspiring. So you have to work way more with reference material, research, landscapes and lighting, or maybe do light studies yourself with your camera, and then make sure you early on communicate and make sure that lighting is baked in, basically, or gets created. Otherwise, you have a very fancy, expensive machine, but you end up shooting something that's not very exciting, or not using maybe the potential of that technology.
Yeah, it's overwhelming to think of as a director, but like, oh my God, would I love to shoot something like The Mandalorian. I mean, just I can't wait to get in there and get my hands on something like that. This is a great question from James. I hope to shoot my first film this year. No hoping, go do it, first of all. And want to embrace natural lighting for budget and narrative, which is very smart. A lot of us have done that for even our, whoever knows, umpteenth films because of budget. So do you have any tips on working with natural light, and how much of a turnoff is natural lighting for DPs?
Yeah, I love working with available light, and I think that's what you usually try to recreate with artificial lighting. You try to recreate something that feels natural. So if you just have to be very smart in choosing your locations, right? Is it if it's interiors, where the windows, what's the sky direction, or if you're exterior, like you want to make sure, right, you position your cameras in a way that the light doesn't change too drastically. But I think it's liberating too, right? You can really focus on other things. You don't have to move lights. You can really focus on framing and the beauty with working natural light. You really have to adjust, be flexible, and maybe adjust the position of the actors in the camera and cheat a bit so the light comes from the right angle, since you can't move the sun. But you can always cheat a bit how you position your actors. Don't stick. That's my big thing. Don't stick too much to continuity and logic. Like, I think that's very dangerous. Like if you're a slave to continuity and say, oh, we were like this, but if it looks right or if it looks better, it's better for the scene, I think. So don't worry, the audience will not see the bigger picture. Like they don't have a behind the scenes camera, how that was shot. Everything that counts is right what's in front of the lens in this little square.
That's such
So
a good lesson too. I always want to point out is that like nobody cares that you had $5 or $5 million. Nobody cares that there was a fire on set, literally, that you had to put out, and the fire department came or you were locked out of your location. You only had an hour. Nobody cares. Only thing people see is what's in that little square. So keep that in mind through everything you guys do. This is a fun one. We have a sound person who's finally piping in here. Cool Dead. What is some advice you give to new sound mixers, specifically when it comes to working with more experienced DPs? I think it's something our sound people were just kind of always like, they know what they're doing. Just be there and out of the shot. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, sound is so important, right? And sometimes we have this issues, especially working on a sound stage, recreating the elements. You might have wind machines which are noisy, and it's really also important to dialogue to be really clear about. Maybe now we really need this wind machine and it's going to ruin the sound a bit, or having the sound mixer really come up and say, I think that's really an issue. Can we work that out? I think the communication there is important. Usually, you sometimes you don't even notice the sound just sounds great, and you're so much focused on the visual side, and you feel like, how do they do that, right? And it never come with the boom in the shot. But just communicate and sometimes right where the mics are hidden, make sure it's, especially like for action stuff when the actors move a lot. For like I always tell also the operators to have an eye on it, because it's happened so many times that people don't pay, or they're not aware. Maybe where is the wire, where's the transmitter? So then you see something, you're not aware what it is, but later it becomes a problem. You might have to paint it out, or you don't have the budget. So sometimes it helps to tell the camera operator or DP, like, there's something here, just make sure we don't see it, or let me know when we shoot from behind so we can move the pack. But sound is so important, right? Like everybody knows the images only half the magic. Make sure that you get great sound and capture the performance.
I like that it's almost making new sound mixers feel comfortable knowing you do have a voice and you should use your voice. I mean, don't be annoying with it.
Yeah.
Communicate. Kate has a lovely question. What's one big thing you wish new directors knew about working with DPs?
I think everybody's so different, right? There's no two directors who are the same.
Is there anything about any directors that just drive you crazy? Like you wish all directors wouldn't do this, or you wish all directors would do this?
Yeah, I feel like, especially remembering back to my time on film school and the early projects, I think sometimes younger director have this imagination that the director is doing everything, right? And is designing the film. It's their creative vision, which of course it is, but you don't. That's what you have to learn. You don't have to, right? You don't have to know how to every lens in the world or every camera system or gimbal, and focus on the storytelling and communicate with your creative allies. Like, and it's more about communicating like an emotion you want to achieve, and then everyone brings in their expertise. How can we actually do it? So you don't have to precisely say, I want to be here in 50, that close. But rather maybe communicating like what do you want to achieve? You want to create a feeling of the character being isolated and lonely in his space, right? And then you find maybe what's the right lens and camera position, and that way, like, don't put that pressure on you that you have to know everything and design everything, because then also you might limit yourself and might not hear the expertise of some of the experienced crew you're working with.
And also, new directors, you got to use your voice. You can't expect that your cinematographer knows what you're thinking. But at the same time, you can't let your cinematographer, because not someone at Markus level, I would hope, would not be doing this. But sometimes new cinematographers, like fresh out of film school, don't know how to not be the director. So they want to choose shots or tell you no about shots, but you have to be firm about what you want, but hopefully in a way that's collaborative. I think as DPs and directors grow, they learn more how to communicate, but it's a little harder in the beginning. We're actually out of time. I want to see if there's one quick question I can squeeze in. I go to the bottom here. There's so many. You guys, thank you for sticking with us and asking such lovely questions. What do we got? This is a fun one. I'm going to end with this. Vincent says, Marcus, have you ever cried at the results of your cinematography?
Good question. I think I had tears once in my eyes, but it's not that I think, wow, look at this amazing shot. It is when everything comes together, right? The performance, the line of dialogue, the mood of the shot. And I think I had a tear once in my eyes, but it doesn't happen very often. But it's not like thinking, wow, what a great shot. I think that's not how it works, right? It is when everything comes together, the acting, the dialogue.
I remember at the one of my second film or something, getting the first cut and just crying. I'm like, how are we gonna make it better? It was so bad.
You don't have to. You got it. You have it. It's in a can, right? Sometimes where you feel like goosebumps, like, oh wow, that's the
best. Yeah. Or even when you have a shot where I always say when I'm directing, if my arm hairs tingle or my heart tingles, or if you get me to tear up, that's the shot. Whether it's the shot itself, the cinematography, the acting, I know we've got something because I think as directors and cinematographers, everything, we're more technical. We're like, what was that? What did that go through? What do they do? You're constantly looking. So that's such a fun question.
That's so important, I think, to put yourself into the audience's shoes, not because, like I said, there's so much technical stuff going on. Don't just worry about, is the depth of field right? Is the exposure? But how does it feel? Does it feel right? And then you can judge, oh, wow, we really got it. This is the take, right? We don't have to. With digital, it's so tempting to endlessly shoot more and more takes, but you might not even notice what you have in front of the lens right now. So.
There's a lot of thank yous coming in for you as we wrap up. Johnny says, I love the insight and being able to ask questions. Kate, this was amazing. Thank you. Just lots and lots of thank yous. And I agree with that. Thank you. It was inspiring and interesting conversation from Guy. Is that how we say it? Goes on and on. And I agree. I think this has been just a really lovely insight into your brain, which is you're just so talented. So it's great to be able to talk to you and to find out that you're also a kind and awesome person. Is always lovely to combine the two. So thank you. Everybody else who is sticking around here, make sure if you haven't commented, now is the time. Put your name and where you're from and what you do in the biz. Get it in there because we're about to pick a winner as we let Marcus go. And Marcus, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you, everyone, for chiming in. Thank you.
As we wait for our winner announcement, I'm going to give you guys some final housekeeping things. Our next event, I normally have all this in front of me, but it's the first event of the year. And I'm just going to say it. I'm out of practice. I don't know what our next event is. It's on our website. Go to blackmagiccollective.com, go to events. Kayla's probably on here and she's going to yell at me and tell me what it is. What else? Make sure you submit your 5-minute or less short films to Blackmagic Collective Film Festival. It is free, and we have a pick of the month every month. So next month we will show a film that we picked from January, and we'll do that every month, and we'll spotlight you in the newsletter. And then at the end, the final 10 will screen, pandemic allowing us, live in LA with lots of prizes. What else do I want to tell you? I wait for my winner to come in. Keep an eye out for the newsletters. If you haven't signed up, if you're new, if you're just joining us, go to blackmagiccollective.com and sign up. That's how you know about our events and you know when our initiatives are coming out. And again, there is a new initiative right now, the Accountability Initiative, which is a year-long program to help you get on track, stay on track, and get to your next level. Thank you again to our sponsors, Blackmagic Design, and for giving us a camera to give away to everybody, I wish everybody, to some lucky winner who attended, and to Sigma for sponsoring us this year. And thank you to you guys for sitting here and watching and listening to me ramble. And for all, you guys had really great questions. I wish I could have got to all of them. Go to our Blackmagic Collective group. And if there's still questions you have and you want to discuss, put them in the group. Let's talk there. Let's get the conversation keep going. And our winner is Aaron Tracy. Aaron, if you are still here, say hello. And if not, we are going to find you an email and get you your camera. And everybody else, I guess we will see you at our next event, which I believe is February 8th. And it's Meet Your G&E Crew. Look, brain is working. All right. Till next month, guys.